I used to work in gas stations at night. A guy came in one night about 1 a.m. and looked out of it. Asked to use the toilet, so I gave him the key. He comes out about 15 minutes later, literally covered in blood and screaming. I call the cops and an ambulance. The cops arrive first. They have to wrestle him to the ground. I check the toilet, and the bowl itself is almost overflowing with shit and blood, and there is blood smeared absolutely effing everywhere. My manager refuses to come in. According to the rules, he is required to come in for all incidents. But because it's his turn to take the kids to school in the morning, he refuses, and I am left cleaning the toilet and handling the police report. Found out later that the guy had an internal hemorrhage, and the cops said he survived. 4th of July night. About 3 a.m., it's a massively busy night, and it's just winding down. This limo pulls into the front parking area, and about 5 girls in G-strings get out and come inside. Just G-strings. I stare because, frankly, they're all gorgeous. They ask for about 15 cans of White Claw for their party. They also buy about 10 packs of cigarettes and mountains of chips and dips and other stuff. I was expecting a credit card, but the one doing all the talking whips out this absolutely massive bundle of cash and pays in brand new $50 bills. They load it all into the limo and leave. Manager refused to give me a copy of the video footage. Attempted murder on the front parking area one night. An old Mercedes-Benz came in off the street and slammed into a guy walking across the parking area, literally catapulting him into the air and knocking him about 20 feet. He jumped up and ran off. I got the Merce's plate and called the cops. Went to court as a witness for that one. I was held up 3 times in my time working at that gas station. Once with a knife, once with a crowbar, once with a gun. The crowbar was the scariest because he caught me out from behind the counter and we had a fight. I lost. Had a group of kids between ages of 13 to 15 go crazy in store one night because I refused to sell them cigarettes. They were opening the bottles of whiskey we sell and pouring it on the floor and then trying to light it on fire. They smashed one of the front windows, which is a pretty damn impressive success, and threw canned food at me. The cops arrived as I was chasing one of them with the baseball bat because he threw a can of baked beans at my car. I've had girls pee themselves because there was a long line for the toilet, usually on Friday nights. Walked into work one night, just in time to see this guy who had been reading a magazine put it down and walk up behind this girl who was standing in line to pay for her gas and smash her in the side of the head. He then took off. I chased him for a bit, but he was way too fast for me. Came back to the store, and the girl was still lying there, out cold. Called an ambulance and the police. Turned out, it was just some random attack. Eventually, they caught the guy because of the store video footage. I worked an opening night at a refurbished store just across the street from some college campus housing. You know, dorms. I had a line of customers out the door. It was the middle of May, and it was already 90 degrees that night, and our building, the C, wasn't working. So the inside of the station was like an oven. I had a really small fan blowing right around my register. Most people were okay, but one girl and guy decided we were taking too long and climbed on top of the closed food table and started doing a striptease to entertain everyone. The show was worth it. Cops even waited for them to finish before arresting them for public intoxication. I've interrupted people having sex in the toilets, stealing shit, trying to break shit. People don't even surprise me anymore. I only did the job for about 6 years in total, but it was all night shift. And most of the time, It was in high-income areas. Most of this happened in the peaceful suburbs of Brentwood and Westwood sections of LA. The holdups were in Hollywood, and the strippers were in West Hollywood. This happened quite a while ago, and we no longer have paper logs. But even since then, I've seen quite a few random, crazy, weird things, and heard a few stories from others on top of this one. Here's one I personally experienced. I drive a truck, and when I hauled steel, I would often run on paper logs, drive all day and well into the night. I'd do upwards of 1,000 miles and like 19 hours in a day, and the tail end of those trips were always a little harrowing. When you get within 10 to 20 miles of your destination and lacking precious sleep, you get a sudden burst of energy. Just enough so that you'll know you'll make it, and that the risk of falling asleep at the wheel is no longer present. It's a nice feeling of satisfaction, but it doesn't come without a price. Hallucinations. For me, at least, that last breath of energy after a long run often brought with it some crazy shit. To make matters worse, places where one might deliver sheet metal coils tend to be right directly inside the butt crack of FN nowhere, and reaching them involved lots of two-lane roads through the woods. Combine narrow, twisting roads, hallucinations, paranoia about getting caught running illegal, and just enough energy to be aware of it all, and you've got what we like to call a situation on your hands. One particular night stands out. The 800 or so miles had taken about 17 hours, thanks to the hills and the back roads I had taken to get there, to a place as close to rural as New Jersey likely gets, just across the Delaware from Philly. I was coming down from a back-to-back dose of double shots and was about 15 minutes away from the 4 hours of sleep I would be getting that night. So I was on edge and starting to see shit again. My hallucinations weren't really readily identifiable things like people, monster, or giant stacks of bacon and such, but vague flashes of movement and light. It was as if something like a fox wearing a suit of strobing LEDs was about to dart out of the tree line. It freaked me out just enough that I usually had one foot on the clutch at all times in case I had to jam the brakes. I knew it wasn't real, but it still bothered me. In the midst of all of this, I was rounding a bend and saw about a quarter mile down the road a man standing in my lane. He had a green reflective vest on and was waving his arms for me to stop. Too real and tangible to be a hallucination. I began to slow down, immediately wary of the situation, and the scene unfolded before me as I got closer. A mid-size SUV was on its side on the other side of the road, and a little pull-off carved out of the forest was bristling with some sort of construction activity at the lively hour of 3 a.m. I said aloud, "What the fuck?" Then, from out of the trees burst a goddamn bobcat. No, not the animal kind, but one of those little four-wheeled mini excavator things commonly used in landscaping. It darted about with all of the agility of its namesake, save for the moment when it turned to face the roof of the car, where it nearly tipped over. The bobcat pushed the vehicle over back onto its wheels, and at least a dozen people crawled out. I stopped counting at 8. I was in a state of mental lapse and had no idea what had just happened. Finally, the guy in the green vest let me pass. My last 10 minutes or so of driving were marked by a sense of calm as I saw every cop car and ambulance in southern Jersey fly past me in the opposite direction, knowing they had something better to do than check my logs. I got to my destination safely and went to sleep. I used to work at a bar that was about 1.5 miles from my house up in rural northern Wisconsin. My shift ended at about 11 one night. I stayed there for a couple of drinks, just to top myself off, then started walking home. I liked walking to avoid a DUI, and especially when the weather was nice like this night. Now, this had been an exceptional night for me tip-wise, and I had close to $400 in cash on me at the time. Between the bar and my house was exactly one streetlight about a quarter mile from the bar. The rest of the walk was in complete darkness. This was a dark night too. It was close to the new moon and cloudy to boot, so it was almost pitch black. Now, I live out in the boonies, so there isn't even much light pollution to help out. Not long after I leave the bar, a car slowly drives by me. About a quarter mile down the road, the car slows to a stop, and it just sits there. I stop walking and watch the car. It sits for a few minutes, then slowly drives away. A couple of minutes later, the same car comes slowly driving past me in the opposite lane. It gets by me, drives a bit down the road, and slows to a stop again. Then it does a U-turn and starts creeping down the road towards me with the lights off. At this point, I'm terrified. I don't have a cell phone at the time. There's no one around to see what's going on. The car is between me and the bar, so I can't get back to the safety there. My house is still about 1 mile away. No way I can quickly escape and get there. So, I quickly run off the road into the woods and duck down behind some bushes. I watch for the car, but it's too dark to see it with the lights off, and bushes, trees, and undergrowth is between me and the road. I sit there for about 10 minutes, but don't see or hear anything. I'm about to make my way back to the road when I hear car doors closing. Now, I'm really panicking. It feels like my chest is about to explode. The hairs on the back of my neck are standing up. I keep imagining someone sneaking up behind me. I stay hidden and hope to God whoever it is doesn't find me. I don't know how long I stayed there, but I eventually hear car doors again, then cars passing by. I give it a couple of minutes, then ease myself back to the road. When I see it's clear, I haul ass back to the bar and let my boss know what happened. He said then and there that I'm never to walk home at night again. Either him, his brother, or his mom will give me a lift home. When the other servers and the kitchen staff hear what happened, they all say the same thing. So, I'm not allowed to freely walk home that late at night anymore. Never been that terrified before in my life. Currently working on a night shift and shitting my pants. We have some homeless who moved into our business park around 6 months ago. I'm the only guy in the office, and we have a lot of computer call center equipment in here. I always shut all the blinds and just have the lights above my desk on. Basically, a week or two after these homeless moved onto our park, I started to see shadows passing the windows because there are street lamps outside, and I keep the office dark. Anyway, I saw these shadows and I picked up my phone to set it on standby, ready to call the police or anyone who would save me if shit got weird. Anyway, as I picked up my phone, I got this weird feeling I was being watched, so I glanced over my shoulder and the blinds behind me were open. There was a guy standing there with his hands cupped around the window so he could see in. I nearly jumped out my damn skin. He just kept looking at me with the biggest, weirdest grin on his face. I pretended to start talking on my phone right away, and he quickly disappeared. I just got to work tonight for the next shift on my own, and the homeless numbers seem to have doubled. I'm dreading something more creepy happening on this shift. I hope you enjoyed this story. Please subscribe to my channel. Also, if you have a true story that is scary, creepy, or horrifying, which is well written, and you would like me to share, send the story to spinethrills@gmail.com.